The RMS Leinster is a relatively forgotten vessel, but she is remembered as one of the many victim vessels of the First World War. Though, in a twist of fate, the U-boat which sank her met its own demise. This is the story of the RMS Leinster and the UB-123. In her earlier years, the RMS Leinster served as a mailboat for the City of Dublin Steam Packet Company. She was a set of 4 sister steamers for the Royal Mail Service, as the mailboats were constructed to serve cross-channel routes between Britain and Ireland. At the time of her construction, she was built to be a 3,069-ton packet steamship with an impressive speed of 24 knots. She would be driven by 2 independent 4-cylinder triple expansion steam engines, though at the time of the First World War, she was armed to carry 1 12-pounder gun and 2 signal guns. During the First World War, she served as a transport vessel for soldiers and passengers alike. Due to her relatively smaller size and fast speeds, she proved to be a difficult target for submarines, thus allowing her to safely cross to Ireland and other coastal ports fastly and safely. However, in the closing weeks of the First World War, the luck of the Leinster ran out. On the 10th of October of 1918, the Leinster was traveling in the Irish Sea. On board, there were 22 postal staff, 100 British citizens, nurses from 6 different countries including Ireland and the United States, and almost 500 military personnel from the British Royal Navy, the British Army, and the Royal Air Force. Before 10 a.m., the Leinster was sailing east off the Kish Bank in a heavy swell when a torpedo was seen approaching from the ship's port side. This torpedo came from the German submersible UB-123. Upon being spotted, the UB-123 fired a first torpedo, which struck the Leinster's bow. A great geyser of water and debris surged upwards, and her complement on board remained silent, perhaps in a state of shock. A second torpedo shortly afterwards was fired towards the Leinster, which landed its mark on the ship's port side in the vicinity of the mailroom. It is believed that the impact killed all but 1 postal staff member from the Dublin postal establishment. Finally, a dreadful scene of panic broke out amidst the passengers as hundreds on board crushed upwards towards the lifeboats up top. The interior companionways became bottlenecked, as did the passageways. As terror reigned on the decks of the Leinster, the vessel began to rapidly settle downwards by the bow. The quartermaster at the helm of the vessel inside the bridge swung the helm hard over to port in an effort to make a U-turn to return to Kingston, a last desperate attempt to hopefully beach the vessel. However, a third torpedo was launched by UB-123, making its mark dead amidships on the port side. The Leinster then exploded. Scalding steam erupted from amidships, as did smoke, soot, debris, and people who unfortunately were trapped within this section. The ship forcefully came to a near stop as she broke her back in this catastrophic explosion. From this point onwards, the Leinster began to settle rapidly by the bow. Scores of people began leaping overboard in a desperate attempt to escape the sinking Leinster. Despite the rapid sinking of the vessel, however, the diligent crew members worked to free the few lifeboats which were still on the decks of the vessel. Only a few lifeboats were able to get away, one of which simply floating off the deck of the vessel as she plunged downwards. Postal clerk John Higgins was able to find his way into a lifeboat by climbing down the lifeboat falls and simply dropping into the lifeboat, which was already filled to capacity, numbering in some 20 passengers. When the Leinster sank, steam continued to erupt from the ship as the remaining boilers that had not yet burst finally exploded as the cold water touched the scalding hot boilers. The ship created a dreadful suction as she went under, taking several dozen with her. A final explosion then took place with the Leinster underwater, which blasted passengers and debris which had been sucked down with the vessel back up to the surface. With several of the life rafts having broken off the decks of the vessel when the Leinster went under, survivors were able to cling onto the life rafts as well as large chunks of debris. For several excruciating hours, the survivors were left adrift in the freezing seas. The HMY Helga, the 3 destroyers HMS Lively, HMS Mallard, and HMS Seal in the hours after the Leinster sank finally found the survivors and aided in rescue efforts with the survivors. They were brought to Kingston Harbour in the Victoria Wharf for hospital treatment. However, in the days after the vessel went down, several bodies of the military personnel washed ashore, as well as passing vessels having recovered these bodies, of which they were sent to the Grangegarmin Military Cemetery to be buried. 10 days later, in an eerie twist of fate, the UB-123 collided with a mine while trying to cross the North Sea and sank with no survivors. As for the Leinster, shockingly few were able to survive the dreadful sinking of the vessel. It is believed by modern estimates that 571 souls had lost their lives in this dreadful calamity. 1 month later, the Great War came to an end.